I met Russell Simmons at a commercial real estate network luncheon when he was the president of the organization. Russell bought his first property at the age of 16, and now he has a portfolio of over 350 apartments in the Houston area. With all of that, yet he is so humble, you would have never guessed how many zeros he got in his bank account. Well, I'll let you hear the rest from Russell himself. And by the way, if you like the show, please help us by leaving a review and sharing it with others. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that notification bell. Now, let's get to the intro. Hey ballers, welcome to episode 107. With me is Russell Simmons and REBallers and the millionaire next door. Hey Russell, welcome to the show.
Hey V, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good, good. So am I your seventh show or your 107th show? I'm not feeling the love now.
Well, I had to work my way up to you.
Oh, good answer.
I had to prepare myself, to take a lot of preparations to because you have so much knowledge, and I really wanted to really get in your head.
Sure.
Yeah. So you started real estate at how old?
I was 16 when I bought my first piece of property. It was in the 1970s. It was a 5 acre tract of land in Wimberley, Texas, and actually saw an ad in the paper and they were owner financing it. I think it was a couple $1,000s down, which I had because I'd been working, saving my money. And so I put that down payment, and then it was $149 a month, which I felt like I could earn. So I bought that land. Never regretted it. I did sell it way too cheap, which my wife reminds me of. I think I sold it to have some funds to buy something else, but that was my start.
At 16.
Yes.
You know what most of us were doing at 16?
Well,
Getting in trouble.
well, we had a family business, so we worked around the clock, and I was making a lot of money, $1.65 an hour. But when you work lots of hours, it adds up. So I don't know what made me do it. I have people say, "What got you involved in real estate?" And I don't know. It just kind of happened, and it's been a good ride.
All right. Were you born and raised in Houston?
Born and raised in Houston. I probably live 20 miles away from where I was born. So, Houston, Texas, the land of opportunity. If it's just a great place to be. I mean, if I live somewhere else, and so many people come to Houston, but I've never had a reason to leave. And then especially being in real estate, you're only as good as what you know. And I know Houston real estate. So as boring as it sounds, I've been here for almost 61 years.
How long have you been in real estate?
This will be my 40th year officially. If I took a couple real estate courses my first year of college, and I used to tell people that I got my license right away, but I went back and researched it, and I didn't get my license until I was 21. And a couple months after that, I bought my first house to live in. So, but officially, I think February of this year will be the beginning of the ending of my 40th year. I don't know, something like that.
So 16, and here you are. After how do you keep count of how many transactions you've done?
I really don't. I'm a real estate broker, so I do a lot of transactions for clients. Do a lot of, I still do some residential, but industrial, a lot of commercial. So, you see these guys like a Mitch Steven did 1,000 deals. I don't know. Maybe I've done 1,000 deals, not for sure. A lot of people do a lot of maybe lower end transactions where they buy and they flip. We didn't used to flip. We would buy to hold. So a lot of things I've held for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So it's I'm sure I'm somewhere around that number of total transactions, but I'd never spend the time to go back and count, I don't think.
So take us back to that first deal that you did. How did you find it? How long did it take you to decide I'm just going to buy it?
This is the land or the first house?
The first house,
The
the
first
very first
house.
deal that you was it your
Yeah.
first? The first one was your first house.
No, the one at 16 was the acreage in Wimberley.
Okay.
And then when I got my license at 21, then I bought the house over by Hobby Airport. So after I got my license, you have to have somebody sponsor you. So we had some family friends that it was a 2-person office, and they held my license and became great mentors. The only broker I ever had, because after a few years I got my broker's license, but just started looking around in that market. And back then you had to drive over to the real estate office, the listing, get the key, drive over to the house, unlock the house, look at it, and then take the key back. So it was back definitely in the dark ages before, Supra. And I was doing a presentation a few years back, and I was talking about writing a contract on the hood of a car and having, all the copies and the carbon paper, and how much different it is now where we digitally sign and do things. And a hand flies up in the back of the room, and I thought, well, I'm really stimulating this group, and this guy's going to ask me this phenomenal question. And he says, sir, what's carbon paper? And I'm like, wow, I'm dating myself. So, but no, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath dump. It had a bad roof and a bad foundation, 2-car detached garage, but it had a 1-car driveway, and it was just a mess. So I couldn't afford to pay anybody to fix it up. So I just kind of started teaching myself how to refinish floors and do some electrical, and do a lot of plumbing, did a lot of tile work, did a lot of sheetrock and painting. I'm the guy that really appreciates a good person that can sheetrock and painting, because not everybody can do it. It's an art. So I try not to do any of that anymore. But back then I just had to do everything. And you couldn't run to the Home Depot because there wasn't a Home Depot. So if you needed wire, you had to go to the electrical house. If you needed plumbing, you went to the plumbing house. And so it's just
Wow.
a different world. So I bought that. It was owner financed. I lived there for 3 years, sold it, walked away with about 50,000 in my pocket. I said, wow, what a country. This is for me. So
Yeah.
I went and decided to buy a house and a garage apartment. And so I went from a 1 unit to 2 units.
Yeah.
And I went to a very little unknown area called the Heights in Houston, and bought there because I liked the architecture. Had no idea what the Heights would become, 30, 40 years later.
Right.
So it's better to be lucky than smart. So bought a lot of property in the Heights over a period of time.
Wow. For as long as you have been in Houston, has Houston ever been in a bust, or has it always been in a boom market?
Oh, we busted in the 70s. We had a bust in the 80s. Of course, about the one subsequently in the 90s, and of course 2008. So it comes and it goes. But for people like us, investors, I know you primarily, and some of the other real estate ballers, regardless of the market. I mean, if the market's hot, we're trying to find a wholesale deal or looking to get lucky. If the market is slow, we're buying heavy, and we're buying a lot as cheap as we can. So you really have to take what the market gives you, regardless of the economy. I call it low-hanging fruit. When things got too competitive in the residential side in the Heights, I bought an office building, and then I was able to I didn't have an office, and I needed about 150 square feet. So I bought a 7,000 square foot building on 11th Street at Shepherd in the Heights. And so for the next 20 years, a lot of tenants made my mortgage. So being a landlord has been good to me. It's paid for a lot of things. And then took that $160,000 investment, which was a lot of money at the time. 20 years later, I sold it to Advanced Auto for 800 grand, and they tore it down and put up an Advanced Auto. So that was the dirt price. So
Yeah.
if you don't have the inventory, you got nothing to lease. If you don't have the inventory, you got nothing to sell. So it just makes sense to, if you're an investor, you have to have mean, the tools of our trade are real estate, whether it be homes or warehouses or buildings or whatever. We have to have inventory. So you got to constantly buy.
I love how you casually just said it. I needed an office, so I went and bought me this building. How,
Well,
I'm sure it's not as easy as it sounds.
maybe you've heard my presentation on that one, but a church was offering it for 160, and I offered 40,000 cash, and they countered at 160, and I offered 80,000 cash, and they countered at 160, and on and on. And then when I offered $160,000 cash, they accepted it. So that's when I say, wow, I'm a great negotiator, right? I got them to accept my $160,000 cash offer, which that was their asking price in the first place. So, and then I like to follow up by saying, does anybody think that I actually had $40,000 cash, much less $160,000 cash? No, I did not. But that's what makes it exciting. That's what keeps you awake at night. But the thrill of the hunt, and then that you're going to be able to find the funds somewhere. I mean, I started out borrowing private money, and then transitioned into bank financing. So you're always looking for funds, because you just never know when you're gonna need it. But the Heights had gotten too expensive. I had quite a few rental houses there, and my wife and I were moving from one fabulous Victorian home to the next, and we were on the home tour, and it was all fun. But then it stopped. We just couldn't afford to buy anymore. The numbers didn't make sense. So we transitioned to oak forest, and we transitioned to garden oaks. So you're always looking for the next best market that you can afford. And then once we'd kind of wrung out those areas to the point where everybody was there and we weren't exclusive anymore, then we started selling some homes and got into the apartment business. So you're just always pushing yourself, probably because you have to. And I probably could have made a good living if I just kept the houses that I had in the Heights and just rented them all these years. The only thing that probably would have been the biggest problem would have been property taxes. Property taxes are kind of out of control. So that's one reason that you turn your inventory and go try to find an asset that's got a lower tax base, that you can collect more rent and pay less tax, and hopefully it appreciates.
So do you have a formula that you use when you go buy these homes?
Not a formula as much as I usually feel like it's something that I can add value. I feel like I have the ability to see some things that other people can't see. I mean, some people don't have any vision whatsoever. I know you and a lot of investors like you do have the vision. You know where to go, and you know what other people can't see. I mean, some people think that a total renovation means they're going to paint the whole house inside. That's a total renovation. Well, we know what a total renovation is. It's from the ground up, plumbing, electrical, everything else. So just the ability to see things maybe that other people don't see, or see them maybe 6 months or a year or two sooner than other people. And then in the end, you really just have to have the confidence in your ability, your own ability, and being desperate helps. Like, wife at home with 2 kids and you're the only income, all commission, that being desperate helps. But, the confidence in your ability that, you can make something out of this, you can add value, you can put a tenant in it at least to cover your mortgage and throw off a little bit of extra money. And then from the time that I've gotten into real estate until today, I mean, the appreciation in this town has been unbelievable. I mean, I have benefited greatly from appreciation, but that's why you have to buy 3 properties when you can only afford 1. Like we were talking about earlier, kind of when we were preparing for this, tomorrow I might sell something that I've owned for 20 years. And so I'm living off a decision that I made 20 years ago. And glad that I had an asset. I mean, a lot of these assets I bought, and I said, well, I'm going to sell these assets to send my children to college. Well, I didn't have to sell those assets to send my children to college. And they're both out and grown now, 28 and 31. So, but it's nice to have that option. But we've been, very, very blessed that, just made a lot of decisions. Most of them have been good. There's been a few bad ones, but that's part of our business.
So when you were buying back then, did you say, I'm going to hold a number of properties and sell a number of properties?
I wished I was that smart, but usually what would happen, and things flow. I mean, I like to discuss with people that, our business as we know it is going to change every 3 years. For 3 years, you might do nothing but buying and selling houses. And then if that market dries up, the next thing you know, you're spending the next 3 years buying and selling warehouses. And we put everything on the market, usually for sale or for lease. And whatever comes along first, that's what we take. And very rarely do we say we're going to get rid of a property other than, we've had a tenant change. We're raising the rent. We put it back on the market for sale or for lease. If it sells, then we just turn that money into something else. But I don't think I ever had a plan on holding a certain amount of properties as opposed to what I sold. Probably a lot of it had to do with cash flow. And then when we got to the point where we were running out of inventory to buy in Oak Forest and Garden Oaks, we started buying small apartment complexes. So we probably sold 2 or 3 houses about the time that we bought the first 40-unit apartment complex over on Sherwood Lane. So that was a real transition. And yeah, I say it like it wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal. I mean, I was scared. I was nervous. Didn't have the funds completely to do it. I needed some owner financing. And in our business, as you know, there's always somebody that is willing to pay more. And they're big talkers. We're big doers. And we, as in you and me, if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it.
Right.
And we've got the funds somewhere. We don't know on Monday where we're going to get them, but by Friday we do. And when we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it.
Right.
So, it's about sacrifice. And a lot of people that are in real estate, in my opinion, are not successful because they're not willing to sacrifice. Like my wife likes to tell how, for 6 months she washed dishes in the bathtub because I'd torn out our kitchen. Well, I don't know what to tell her, but it's called sacrifice. That's what we had to do back then.
Wow. And you guys are still married after 35 years?
Yeah, coming up on 36. Yeah, we've been together for 42. So she's barely hanging on by her fingernails, but I'm she's about tired of me, but after a period of time, can't get rid of me.
I can see that. So I talked to another investor recently, and he said real estate is a reactive industry. It's always a reaction to everything else that's going on.
Agreed. Unless you've just got tons of money and you can buy what you want when you want it. Yeah, I think I said it earlier. I was thinking I call it low hanging fruit. I take what the market gives me. Let's say, I like to refer to one property on Hoskins that I bought, and saw it from a wholesaler, bought it that day for $250. A couple of weeks later, was selling it for $375. Those are the ones that you like to talk about, and that's
Right.
that's exciting. But if I got up the next day and said the only thing I'm going to do is look for houses that I can make 125 grand on in 2 or 3 weeks, I'd be out of business. I mean,
Yeah.
You wake up the next day and you say, well, for myself as a real estate broker, I wake up the next day and a client calls me and says, hey, Russell, will you lease my house for me in Spring Branch? I don't say I'm too good to do that, or I might say that, and sometimes I do, but you go lease the house. I mean, it's, you make a couple grand, it happens quick. Money's money. You're out in the market, you're meeting people. You might meet your next tenant, you might meet your next buyer, you might meet somebody that's looking to sell some property. So yeah, you don't get up and look for the home run. You just get up, look for an opportunity to do some type of transaction in real estate. And I find myself when don't have any deals and I'm wondering what's going on, I think about, well, what have I been doing the last few days or weeks? Well, I've been staring at a computer
Mm-hmm.
looking for deals, where my success is getting out, talking to people, meeting people, and that's where you find the deals. So real estate's very much a people business. And long story, yeah, reactionary. So we react to what we see. I mean, if it's an off market warehouse, then you're gonna buy that. If it's an off market fourplex, then you're gonna buy that. You just take what the market gives you. You try to just do a certain type of deal over a long period of time. I don't think that you're going to be successful.
So where do you look? You repeatedly said you take what the market gives you and it's a react, but how do we know what it's going to do? This episode is brought to you by Buzz Vacation Rentals, a premier property management company in Houston and Galveston area. Give Buzz a call at 281-549-8432 to learn more about their rent guarantee program, or check out their website at listwithbuzz.com. Now, back to the Real Estate Baller Show.
Well, you promised me a deal in Houston and a deal in Austin if I did this podcast. So that's one way. You just never know when you're going to run into somebody at an event. If it's listed on MLS, trying to make a friend out of a realtor, you're trying to, you got to make a lot of offers. You have to have thick skin. A lot of people tell you there's no way they're going to take that. And then 3 months later, they're taking that offer. So I think you just have to be active in the market. I mean, in 2008, when I got out of the apartment business, I didn't know what a wholesaler was. And I've embraced it since then. And most of my great deals have come from wholesalers. So I've had a lot of success with changing the use of properties. Like people will put a house with an acre on the market and selling it as residential. And I immediately see it as the house is converted to an office, and all the extra land, you build a warehouse, and all of a sudden the guy's paying you twice as much for it because he can run his business from there. So same way with commercial properties that are close inside the loop or inside the beltway. They're selling them as commercial. And the first thing I look at is like, I can scrape that property and sell it to a home builder and make more money. So you just have to, like we talked about earlier, you have to see things through a different set of eyes. I mean, you have to, have the vision to see what really needs to happen at a property. You can't just be a cookie cutter type person. I don't think that you'll get the deals.
So as many years as you've been in real estate, have you had a loss?
Not that I can think of. I mean, some things have not happened as I had hoped. A big financial loss in real estate? No. Did I lose, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the stock market because I think I'm a stock trader? Yes. Did I lose $100,000 going in partnership with a guy in a restaurant deal, and I can't even cook? So you need to stay with what you know, and
stay in your lane.
Stay in my lane. And at 50 years old, so almost 11 years ago, I said, Russell, what are you good at? Real estate. Are you good at the stock market? No. Are you good at restaurants or other things where you rely on other people's expertise? No. You're good at what you do. So now I am 110% all real estate. And if I don't understand it, I don't do it. If I can't run it, I don't do it. I definitely stay in my lane.
So you're probably seeing just about anything in this market.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is own a couple hundred apartment units, and you've seen everything in the world. I mean, they're just, that's just a different world. So yeah, there's not much I haven't seen, experienced, whatever. But I enjoy the people. I enjoy solving the problems. I enjoy making things look better, and making a living out of it is just kind of the bonus. I mean, real estate beats working for a living, right?
Sure does. What advice do you have for, I look to you for advice many times to how to stay in this business and how to not even experience losses. I mean, I had my first loss on a house that I sold a few months ago. So in the big picture, I thought it was a really good ratio.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, if something's not going to work out, it's time to get your money freed back up. I mean, nothing specific, pops into my mind. I'm sure I've had some challenging deals over the years, but real estate people, we have to be optimistic. So we focus on the good things, not the bad things. But I always encourage people. You always have to be meeting people. You need to be genuine. You need to be helpful. You need to be honest. I get deals because of my reputation. Sometimes, numerous occasions, there's a bidding war, and I'm pleased to say that I got the deal because people know that my word is true. And if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it the right way. So if you're in the business, be genuine. Don't be sketchy. The sketchy people always get pushed out eventually. And, it's hard for you to tell your children, hey, be reputable and make sure that what you say you do if you don't do that yourself. So I think I've been very fortunate over the years to keep a good reputation. I think it's benefited me, and I use it all the time. When I'm buying from somebody, I try to find a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, hey, call so and so. They'll vouch for me, and I think it just means a lot. When I bought that first 40 unit apartment complex, I was probably 10th in line to buy this complex.
Yeah.
Everybody had a story. Every contractor in town was going to buy it, or a CDC or a church or whatever. And what it came down to was the older couple that was selling the property. We had a mutual banker. And after we talked for a while, and she found out that I dealt with Larry Reibenstein at Sterling Bank, who's now deceased, the deal was done. He vouched for my integrity and that he had loaned me money, and that he would loan on this one if I needed it. So yeah, the reputation has been huge. I think if I had a poor reputation, I wouldn't be near as successful. Did I answer a question?
Small world.
Yeah. Oh, it's a tiny, tiny world. So when you're in real estate in Houston, I was showing an office to over at the Texas Real Estate Center on Hollister to some investors today who were looking for an office, and they saw a name on the door. They said, so and so, and I said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Oh, we love him, whatever. So I think that connection is going to have them come into the building, and I think they're going to be right next to your office, or maybe just one door down.
You still got that office saving for me?
Yeah, still saving it for you.
All right. What are the things that investors need to do to not get in trouble, to really, stay in this business for as long as you have?
So I think being willing to sacrifice. I would buy a warehouse or a little office or something like that, and then I would tell my wife about it, and she would say, what are we gonna do with that? And I would say stuff like, well, if we don't sell this house that we've got on the market, or if we don't sell the house that we're living in, we're going to move into that warehouse or that building, and we never had to, but you just have to be willing to, what I call, ugly it in, do what's necessary, that's right and legal, and to make things happen. So there's been numerous times in our career where I've sold the house right out from underneath my family, but they benefited. We were able to take our homestead and make a whole lot of money, not pay tax on it, roll it into something else. So I think my kids joke that by the time they were 10, they'd lived in 6 different houses, but they probably weren't but a few blocks away from each other. But my son's investing now, and so I guess he picked up some tips along the way. But I think sacrifice is important. Being willing to work extremely hard. I feel like.
Wait a minute. Work hard?
Yeah.
I didn't get in real estate to work hard.
Yeah, well, you've got your looks. I have to work hard, so I can't live off of those. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that, people that have a job, they work hard. They have to get up and commute every day, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
If they do any work, yes or no. At the end of the week, they get a check, probably. You and I don't. We have to make something happen. But I've probably worked 6.5 days a week my entire life. I always get up on Sunday and go to church, and then if I need to go to work, I will. But by the same token, if nothing's going on a Friday afternoon at 2, then I come home and I do a podcast, and then I watch Bonanza on the Western station, and I take a nap, and then I might go back to work for a couple hours. So when my kids were very young, I would say that between midnight and 6 a.m. was my time. So I worked around the clock a lot because I had to get up the next day and act like I was working and be a father and coach baseball and go watch soccer games and go to school related things. So it's a great life, but if you're not willing to work hard and sacrifice, it's probably not the business for you. Or if you're not willing to kind of think out of the box, and you have to have confidence in your own ability, but you can't be cocky. You can't walk around talking about how wonderful you are. You just got to get the work done. If people want to think that you're wonderful, that's fine. But being humble, working hard, being willing to sacrifice, yeah, it's definitely a great life. I mean, I real estate's been very good to me, and hope to be doing it for another 20 some odd years, at least until you turn 40, whichever comes first.
You still got a little while.
Yeah.
Is your wife in real estate?
We actually met when she was 17 and I was 18 in the lobby of Stewart Title, where she was working as an escrow secretary, her first job out of high school. So she had her license at one time and then let it go. After the children were raised, she became an interior designer, and then she's got a construction business, and she does most of our construction work now as opposed to me, because I just don't enjoy it after all these years. I just try to find the deal and watch the money, and then she does all the hard work.
That's a smart man.
Yep. Something that I haven't touched on.
Yeah.
For the people out there that might be real estate agents or real estate brokers, you really need to be an investor. How you can be in the business and make other people money without taking advantage of it yourself. I encourage everybody, if you're renting now, go buy a house, your homestead. If you own a home, go buy a rental home. You have to be all in. It's not something where, well, I'm a real estate agent and I'm sort of in and I kind of do some deals there. No, you need to be all in. And I think that's what gave me kind of the confidence to stretch out into, I do a lot of industrial properties on the Eagle Ford Shell, from Corpus Christi to Midland, Odessa, and some work in Pennsylvania and North Dakota and different places. It's because, I was able to buy that building. So you bought a building, you know how it works, so you can help somebody else buy a building and you make a commission. And so then you buy a warehouse, and then you can help encourage other people to buy a warehouse. So my business has been built on getting experience, owning myself, and then using that experience to have a successful commission business, brokerage business. So, and then you just kind of build on it, the confidence. It's like, well, I've owned a 100-unit apartment complex. Maybe I can own a 150-unit complex.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that experience, then you can take that experience and help other people. When you're doing,
Right.
$2-3 million deals and commissions, that could be 60, 70, 80, 90 grand in commissions. That's a good day for most of us, not for you, but you just
It's
mail
average.
that in.
It's average.
Average day. Yeah. So I've benefited of being on both sides of the transaction, and it's fun to make commissions. It's fun to collect rent. It's fun to sell things and get the proceeds. But I'm all in. Real estate's all I know and all I do.
How was your 2020?
2020 started very slow. Historically, I either start slow and finish fast, or vice versa. It started slow, so January and February were non-existent as far as doing deals and making commissions. That's where it's nice, where you're, maybe you're still collecting on some notes, or you're collecting rent, so you've got money coming in, but you still keep score by by deals and commissions. So then the pandemic hit, and I thought it was over. I mean, I really thought that this was going to be the worst year ever. And then the phone started ringing, and did a couple industrial deals, one in Corpus and one in Midland,
Mm-hmm.
which was great. Leased some properties for some clients, helped some clients buy some properties. Never bought a condo townhome in my life. I bought and sold 4 in
Yeah.
2020 and made some really good money. Once again, low hanging fruit, take what the market gives you. A lot of first time home buyers that I work with. And people say, well, gosh, Russell, why would you work with a first time home buyer? Well, they're my friends' children.
Yeah.
They're my children's roommates at college. They are clients that buy commercial property from me. And then they say, hey, Russell, we want you to sell our 500,000 and help us, buy $1 million home. Who am I to say no? Number one, I mean, I wear multiple hats. Sometimes I'm the client, sometimes I'm in charge, sometimes I'm just a broker, and people tell me what to do, and I do it because that's how I make a living.
Well, you're so
So,
humble because there's so many guys, agents out there, they would say, well, I typically don't do these kind of deals because they're too small. I'm used to selling $1 million home. I don't do $100,000 home.
yeah, I think it's time management, and they maybe have a big team, and I've got a friend that probably makes $500,000 or $600,000 a year, but
Mhm.
he's probably got a payroll that's $10,000 or $15,000 a month.
Mhm.
My payroll, a month is zero. My overhead is about $500 or $600 because office in my own building, and I just kind of like to do things myself. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a virtual assistant. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I'm just saying that's the way that I do it. But 3 or 4 leases add up to a really nice deal.
Mhm.
Trust me, I'm not driving to Clear Lake or the Woodlands or Missouri City to do a whole lot of deals. Most of what I do is kind of in my area of between Edo, downtown, near North, Spring Branch. I kind of run in a 5-10 mile radius. So yeah, if somebody said, Russell, go sell a house for $100,000 out in Kingwood, I would say thank you, but I can't do that. Let me refer that business to somebody else. But staying humble is when you stay humble, when things don't go well, you don't have that far to fall. Right?
That's right. Where do you see this market is going?
Everybody I've talked to, 2020 was a good year, a fair deal. I mean, a fair year, an average year. I was reading an article on Inman News that said that some commercial brokers said they had an extraordinary year. How
Mhm.
they did that, I don't know. I think most of it was probably big industrial sales, selling a 3 million square foot, warehouse to Amazon or something huge that I wouldn't even know how to begin to start working on. But yeah, I think 2020 was a good year. If I looked at all the indicators and I listened to my head and my heart, I would say 2021 is going to be challenging because the government's spending money that they don't have.
Mhm.
A lot of people haven't worked. A lot of businesses have closed. A lot of the stimulus is going to end. A
Mhm.
lot of landlords aren't collecting money, whether
Mhm.
it be houses, apartments, retail, whatever. In my own little world, all of our tenants are paid. So I'm
Mhm.
grateful for that. But regardless of what happens, value investors like you and myself and a lot of people we run with, we're going to find the low hanging fruit. Whether it's going to be in Spring, Texas, or Beaumont, Texas, or Columbus, Texas, or wherever. I see the people going further and further out.
Mhm.
Well, case in point, so the Heights was the Heights, and we got priced out of the Heights many years ago.
Yep.
So 3 or 4 years ago, we started buying in Edo. Of course, Edo being the big area, east of downtown,
Yep.
and really Edo is very small. The East End is very big, but over a period of 2 or 3 years, we bought 6 or 7 deals in the East End, did very well.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of the Heights 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
And, close to town, lots of restaurants,
Yeah.
The Midway group that's doing that did City Center. They're doing the East River, which is going to
Right.
be 150 acre.
Yeah, I did see that
Multi.
article.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's going to
Yeah.
be like the San Antonio River Walk. It's got
Yeah.
the Buffalo Bayou piece and everything. So, but we saw an opportunity to go back there, pick up a few assets before other people saw it. And then it started getting hotter. And then you dig a little bit deeper. You find a few more deals. You cash out on some, you keep some for rentals. And then when it gets to the point that you can't afford it anymore, you look for the new East End. Where is it? I don't know. But,
Right.
kind of
When
looking.
you find the next one, can you let me know?
Not for free. No.
Oh, dang it.
But I mean, I don't know where it comes from. I mean, it just, and obviously when I say I'm in the East End, there was a lot of other people there too.
Mm.
I mean, it's not like I'm the only one that saw and the only one that benefited, but we got our share, and probably a couple of those properties we'll keep for 10 or 15 years. And then we'll sell them and be able to look back and say, I'll be on a podcast saying, well, I bought this thing in the East End 15 years ago, and now it's allowing me to do this or that. So
Yeah.
like to keep a little bit inventory in all markets,
Yeah.
Still have one in Oak Forest, which I like, still have a few things in Spring Branch, which I still like. But so 2021, I think we just have to continuously meet with people, look for the next trend.
Yeah.
If things get really bad, I mean, if they stop this moratorium over foreclosures, maybe there's going to be some foreclosures out there to pick up. I haven't ever really done a whole lot of that, but if there's a lot of them, maybe. I mean, look at. We thought that Harvey was going to destroy the real estate market in the west side of town, and I know a lot of people that made a ton of money doing flood jobs. I was not one of them. It just didn't interest me. But
I didn't buy anything there either.
Yeah, but we both know some people that bought 20 or 30 things and did really well. We also know some people that got stuck with some things. So I think, at the end of the day in 2021, Houston, Texas is still Houston, Texas. Probably the greatest economy. I mean, people from California, they're coming.
Yep.
The other coast, they're coming. Gosh, Oracle, they said they're coming. Just a lot of tech companies are coming to Austin.
Right.
I don't know about those Austin ballers. Y'all might not be able to afford anything there much longer. And they got the traffic grid and everything. But, Houston is always, people are going to need a place to live. And I guess I like to have my fingers in, a little bit of commercial, a little bit of industrial, a little bit of multifamily. And a multifamily for me today would be a house and a garage apartment. I'm not getting into apartments heavy again. And there's nothing wrong with, picking up a house or two, or we've done some raw land, just whatever we think that we can add value to. So 2021, interest rates will probably stay low.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be some opportunities somewhere, but I would be a little conservative. I don't think I would just go nuts on buying right now. I would try to stay under control and just see what happens. I mean, it's certainly early in 2001 with the change in leadership, the pandemic, just the overall economy. If we had another average year, I'd probably be happy.
I've known you for a while, and I feel like you've been very conservative with your approach, your deal buying. What's the riskiest deal that you have ever done?
Maybe the first apartment complex. It was 40 units and totally vacant. That would be one.
Did you get a good deal?
Yeah, I got it 10 grand a door, which was pretty good back then. I bought a couple acre tract of land and thought it had city services, and it didn't. And but my neighbor had to have it, and I doubled my money. I got lucky on that one. So that was gosh, just a lot of it has just to do with being fortunate, getting lucky. But all of that starts with buying at the right price. I mean, I've never been known to pay too much. I've never gotten into a bidding war. It's like y'all fight it out. If somebody wins, congratulations. If it blows up in your face, you know where to find me, and I'll be there with that same offer, and I'll close it at that same amount. So yeah, conservatively, you have to buy right. You have to put the correct debt in place. I mean, I love all my hard money lenders, but I've never borrowed hard money. I mean, my expensive money for me is 6%. So I've got the benefit of a lot of years and experience,
Yeah.
and things have changed, and I change when I need to. But building my business on expensive money is probably something that I'm not going to do. I'll loan out my expensive money. How much you need? You need some money?
Yeah, you got any 5% money?
No 5% money. 5 points. And then now no, I mean, I'm in a good position. It's just because we've done it for a long time, but the same old things remain. You got to buy right. You got to be conservative. You have to have confidence in your own ability. You have to be passionate about it. You have to be willing to move into it. All the same old things that don't change. And if anybody that thinks our business is easy is incorrect. It is a hard business. We just make the best out of it, and we enjoy the rewards. We sometimes people will ask about different tenants that we have in these different buildings or whatever, and all of my tenants are eclectic. I mean, they're entrepreneurs. They're self-starters. They couldn't work for anybody else because nobody else would have them. I mean, they just, that's the type of people that we are, and we're just a different breed. But if the market's not going to always save you, so you have to be willing to, find your price and stick with your price. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been successful. My acquisition prices have been, I just contracted on a tract of land out in the country, and I got a $100,000 discount. I've been negotiating it for 2 weeks, but I was willing to walk away, and it turned out that they needed to sell it more than I needed to buy it. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Okay. Well, you need a partner?
How much money you got?
Well, how much do you need?
Oh, 500,000.
All right, deal.
You bring the money, we'll be 50-50 partners.
How about a majority? I get the I'll bring 51, 501.
Yeah, there you go. The nice thing about it is I make a commission too. So I'm fortunate that I've got the real estate background as a broker. Sometimes I'm negotiating something for myself, it just doesn't work out. So then I can find somebody that's got more money than me or more desire to have that property, and I can represent them, and they get the deal, and I make a commission and move on to the next one. So I guess the more things that you can do in the real estate industry, the better off you are, within reason. I don't think you can wear too many hats, but being a broker and being an investor have been good for me.
So my key takeaway from you is be flexible.
You've got to be able to change directions, and it's just essential. I've got a friend that has been a broker for years and years, mainly leasing retail restaurant type stuff. And he's made an average living, and he's always, telling me, bragging to me about how successful I have and this and that and whatever. I was like, well, I haven't really had a choice. I mean, my wife stayed home to raise our children. That's what I wanted. And his wife is way high up in a corporation and makes a whole lot of money. And I said, you've gone the route that you've gone because you could. I went the route that I went because I had to, and I think it benefited me. And let's say, if my wife was an attorney and had been making $200,000 or $300,000 a year all these years, I don't think I would be near as successful in real estate as I have been.
You might just be out playing golf.
I might be, and you've never seen me play golf, but that's ugly. Tennis, maybe, never golf, but yeah, I mean, when you don't have a choice but to work hard and be successful, I think it makes it a little bit easier. That's always been my motivation.
I know we're just kind of all over the place today because you have so
Sure.
much knowledge, and I just didn't really have an agenda. What do you think? What's your thought on, since appreciation is really high today? What's your thought on holding?
I think it's a combination of everything. I mean, if my basis is low and the rents are good, tenant turnover is terrible. So yeah, the buy and hold model works. I'm thinking, owning less and being a little bit more nimble.
Mm-hmm.
I've started loaning out some money as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to keeping the money all invested in my personal real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, looking at more ranch property and more, country property, just kind of changing the lifestyle a little bit, maybe spending half a week out of town and half a week in town. So my perspective is a little bit different. But if you're comfortable with a buy and hold, I think that's great. If you're comfortable with flipping everything that you can, I think that's good too. It just really, you just kind of have to look at the numbers. That's another thing I tell people all the time, especially super young people like you. It's like, there's no right or wrong answer in real estate if you're still moving forward. They want to say, well, tell me how you would finance this. It's like, well, I mean, one of a half a dozen ways. What way works for you?
Right.
Since I never had a true mentor and I never worked for another real estate company, with the exception of that broker that held my license for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
forever I looked for magic deal dust, especially in the commercial arena. Like,
Yeah.
how did that guy do that?
Yeah.
What did they do? How did they blah, blah, blah? And I'm looking for one way. And what I really found out after years of just struggling and doing it my way and wonder if it's the right way,
Mm-hmm.
if you got it done and is legal and both parties are happy, then that's the right way. And there's multiple ways to do things. And so don't, it's like, should I use my IRA? Should I raise the money here? How much do I put down? Should I bring in a partner? Whatever works for that deal,
Right.
that makes sense.
Right.
And then if it's more successful than another way, then you do it that way again. But real estate is one of those areas to where there's so many ways to do it right.
Yeah.
There's quite a few ways to do it wrong. That's what you gotta concentrate on. Not doing something wrong, as opposed to worrying about how many different ways you can do it right, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's really good advice. So as we wrapping up here, what is something that people might be surprised about you?
I got a whole long list. You want a whole long list?
Oh, just pick out your top one, top two, top one, top three.
So, raised in a flower shop. That's what my parents did. So I was a flower child in the 60s.
Ah,
Yeah. Been held at gunpoint at least 6 times.
wow.
Jumped
That's
out
what
of a lot
happened
of,
when you own property in the hood.
I guess.
Well, I'm
Uh,
sorry to hear that.
I'm still alive. Half the time it was police, so it wasn't really that bad of a deal. Um, Jumped out of a lot of airplanes.
Do you have your chute done? Your your
A
suit?
couple times not. So that explains some things.
Wait, jumped out or pushed out?
My wife wasn't in the plane, so I jumped.
Okay.
I'm ornery. You probably didn't know that.
No, no.
Yeah, I am. Other than that, I think everybody knows everything about me. Very, very blessed, great family, great friends, live in a great town, great industry. Real estate's a gift, and I encourage people to get into it, but don't do it right after you watch an HGTV show. We know those aren't real.
Oh, well, but that's got a lot of people in real estate.
Yeah,
Everyone think it's easy.
we know better. When you're driving to Corpus Christi or whatever those other towns are that you go to show somebody a house that you're going to flip or own or finance, I mean, it's just, you can spend a whole day doing one thing. It's not an easy business, but it certainly is something that affords you a good lifestyle.
Yes, it does offer certain perks that we can't get anywhere else. What's your favorite hobby?
I like riding my tractor out at the ranch and clearing the land and pushing it in a pile and having big bonfires. I enjoy cleaning the land.
All right.
Sounds boring, huh?
Well, somebody got to do something.
Well, I mean, I like to eat. Oh, something you don't know is I'm a grandfather now. So I have a 6-month-old granddaughter. So I get to play with her. So that's fun. I love to travel, but we haven't been anywhere just because of, just the concern of everything. It just makes more sense to stay home, but I'm ready to hit the road and go vacation somewhere.
Yeah, I can't wait to really go back to traveling too. I miss it.
Weren't you in Hawaii last year?
We went right before all of this happened.
Oh, okay.
We were lucky. We went to Hawaii and then we came back and then the pandemic hit. So we were very lucky.
How much fuel does it cost for you to fly in your private jet to get to Hawaii?
I don't know. Who's counting? I paddle.
Oh, I doubt that.
So how does the audience get in touch with you?
They can call me at 832-524-4220, and I actually answer my own phone. And or my email is Russell, RUSSELL @TAPHOU.com, which stands for Texas Area Properties Houston. And I love talking with people. I love young people and spending some time with them, encouraging them in their brokerage business or real estate business. I mean, that's the thing that we love talking about real estate.
Well, that's all for today's episode of the Real Estate Ballers. Thanks for watching, and thanks, Russell, for joining me today. Don't forget to visit our website at REBallers.com to learn more about us. If you found value in this show, we appreciate a thumb up. Or if you simply tell a friend about us, that would help too. And please hit that subscribe button so you never miss another show. We'll see you in the next episode.